Lightning split the sky as amber eyes flickered in the darkness. She flinched backward. Morgan wiped rain from her face and slammed the clinic door shut behind her. The storm had knocked out power across Pinewood County, and the old backup generator in the basement was groaning under the strain. The place smelled of wet fur and antiseptic. Her scrubs clung to her body, soaked from the mad dash from her cabin to the clinic. She hadn't expected any emergencies tonight. The roads were nearly impassable, the storm brutal. But something had woken her, not thunder, not wind. Something more metallic. A sound like machinery colliding with the sky. Then the knock came. "Doc, emergency." Frank Delaney's voice, muffled by the storm, owner of the largest cattle ranch in the county. She yanked the door open. Frank stood drenched, wind-whipped, cradling. Something large wrapped in a tarp found him near that crash site up north. He shouted. Thing fell out of the sky. Had to trank him. He was bleeding bad. Morgan stepped aside, cleared the exam table. The bundle was heavy. She unwrapped it carefully. Not a dog, not a wolf, but close fur like blue smoke with streaks of copper. Long limbs, a strange, almost mechanical collar clinging to its throat. "You sure it ain't just some hybrid?" she asked, pulling on gloves. Frank shook his head. "You tell me." Military's already cordoning off the crash. Whatever fell wasn't from around here. Morgan worked quietly. Its breathing was shallow but rhythmic. The wound on its side wasn't torn, it was melted. Tissue fused like it had been seared shut by heat far beyond anything natural. As she leaned closer, her fingers brushed against exposed metal under the skin. Something mechanical was embedded in the creature's shoulder. Where are you?" she murmured. Once Frank left, she locked the doors and turned off the lanterns. The storm outside raged louder. Lightning flashed, then the thing on the table stirred. Its eyes opened. Amber, glowing, intelligent. Morgan froze. The wolf, whatever it was, did not move. Its gaze tracked her, following her every motion. No growl, no snarl. "You're awake," she whispered. It blinked, and then it spoke, not in words, not quite. A sound like modulated speech buzzed faintly from its throat. The collar lit up. The voice, mechanical and broken, said, "Critical damage. Assistance required." Translation matrix compromised. Morgan stumbled back. The thing twitched and then convulsed, limbs reshaping. Bones cracked, fur retracted. She watched, unable to move. It transformed halfway. A twisted amalgam of wolf and man, humanoid yet still alien. The collar round its throat flickered. Crown air, mission failure, compromised vessel. And then it collapsed. She approached slowly. Her hands trembled as she scanned it again with her old tech gear she hadn't touched since Westlake. Readings spiked off every chart. Alien. There was no question now. She worked through the night, extracting metal fragments, stabilizing tissue, rehydrating cells. The storm began to fade by morning, but Morgan's world had already changed. When the creature woke again, it spoke clearly, the collar now fully translating. "I am Corin, envoy, heir to the Canid Collective." She laughed. "Of course you are, and you just happened to crash here." "Negative. I was pursued. Attackers infiltrated my vessel. They seek to establish a breach point on this planet. They cannot be allowed to succeed." She stared. "Breach point, your world lies along a dimensional seam, strategically valuable. They plan to invade." Morgan looked at the bandages, the alien tech, the burnt sky hours before. "Then you're here to stop them." "Affirmative. But I cannot without aid." Just then, headlights pierced the morning fog. Black SUVs, 3 of them. "Is that your people?" Morgan asked. Corin's ears twitched. "No. They wear human skin, but are not your kind. They are infiltrators." Morgan didn't wait. She grabbed her medkit, wrapped her arm around Corin's waist. "There's a cellar," she said. "This way." They vanished just as the front door shattered. From the dark, Morgan heard an unhuman voice say, "Target's biosignature detected. Eliminate all witnesses." It started with a scream no one heard. Silas didn't get many visitors. Not this deep in the pine woods, and not since the flood took out the old logging road. Just the wind, the rustle of branches, and the slow groan of trees leaning toward rot. But that morning, He found footprints in the mud near the stream, barefoot, narrow, not human. He crouched beside them, brushed the edge of the print with a callous thumb. Fresh. Maybe an hour old. The toes were long, the pressure uneven, like something that wasn't used to walking. Guess you're not a deer, he muttered. Silas adjusted the strap on his satchel and followed the trail into the woods. Sun hadn't risen fully yet. The mist hung low, clinging to ferns and curling like breath over the wet earth. His boots sank in places, but he knew these paths better than he knew most people. An hour passed, then another. The prince wandered with no purpose, and just when he was about to give up, he saw her. She stood waist-deep in the river, arms raised as if in prayer, the current bending around her legs. Her hair was soaked, long and tangled with leaves. Her skin, what little he could see of it, was the color of polished stone. A faint silver glow traced her spine. Silas raised a hand. "Hey, you okay?" She turned, fast, eyes sharp as glass, and for a second he felt something cold press against the back of his skull. Fear, pure and ancient. "Don't run," he said gently. "You look hurt." Her lip trembled, a flicker of expression. Then she crumpled into the water. Silas didn't think. He waded in, pulled her out. She was light, too light. Her skin burned cold against his arms, not freezing, but wrong. Back at his cabin, he laid her near the stove. The fire was still going from the night before. He wrapped her in blankets, tried not to stare. The cuts on her side weren't natural, too clean, too precise, like she'd been dissected. She came to slowly, blinked up at the wooden ceiling, then at him. Tried to sit up. "Careful," Silas said. "You're safe, for now." Her voice was a whisper, almost musical. "You are not one of them." "I guess not. They will come. They always come." "Who?" She hesitated. "They wear your faces, but their eyes, they burn." Silas nodded slowly. "I believe you." She blinked. "You do. Seen too much not to." Strange lights in the sky, animals vanishing, trees sickening. The wind doesn't sound right anymore. She touched his hand. Her fingers were too long, her nails faintly glowing. "What's your name?" he asked. She tilted her head. "Neva." "I'm Silas. You're safe here, Neva." For a time, they said nothing. She drifted in and out of sleep. Silas changed her bandages, fed her broth, and tried not to ask too many questions. He'd lived alone long enough to know silence often spoke the most. Neva watched the fire like it was telling stories only she could hear. She spoke of a fracture, a tearing in the sky, of scouts sent ahead to widen the breach, of her role to close it. "I failed," she said quietly. "Maybe not. You made it here." But they followed. And that night, they did. Silas woke to the sound of shuffling feet outside his cabin. 3 shadows in the trees, too smooth, too still, like mannequins learning how to move. He slipped his rifle from the mantel, crept to the window. One of the shapes turned its head in a perfect circle. Eyes flashed red for a second. "Neva," he whispered. She was already awake, standing barefoot on the rug, pale light emanating from her spine. "I will draw them away." "Like hell you will," Silas said. "This is my home. If they want to fight, they'll get one. You do not understand what they are. Maybe not, but I know what I am." He opened the door slowly, stepped onto the porch, aimed his rifle at the tallest figure. "You got no business here," he said. The figures turned to face him. Their mouths opened in unison. "Return the asset," they said in voices layered with static. "Don't think so." They moved fast, too fast. Silas barely fired before something knocked him flat. His head cracked against the wood. Darkness bloomed. In his vision, when he came to, the cabin was burning. Neva was crouched beside him, bleeding silver into the dirt. "You okay? You are hurt." "Not as bad as you." Sirens in the distance. A forest fire would draw attention. "Maybe too much. We have to move," Neva said. "They will call more." Silas helped her to her feet. His hands shook, but she leaned into him. Together, they fled into the trees. Behind them, the fire ate the past. Ahead of them, only stars. Soren had made peace with dust. It clung to everything: his boots, his skin, the half-broken satellite dish on the back of his truck. The Eridan wastes were quiet, endless, and full of secrets. Some folks called it cursed land. Soren called it home. His trade was simple. He salvaged old parts, fallen satellites, dead tech. Once, he'd even pulled a strange cube from a crater, a cube that pulsed like a heartbeat before going. Still, he kept it in a lead box under his seat. No one bought that kind of mystery. But someone might want it someday. It was evening when he saw the trail of smoke, thin and rising slow from the southern ridge. Too controlled to be a fire, too rough to be a signal. He followed it. His truck grumbled over cracked earth and fossilized roots until he reached the hollow. A wreck, part ship, part something older, scattered blackened metal, glowing faintly at the seams. And there, leaning against a chunk of hull, was her. She raised a knife when she saw him. Easy, Soren said, not looking to steal, just saw the smoke. Her eyes flicked over him, then down to the cube on his belt. That tech, she said. You found it near here, years back. Crater half a day's ride north, and you kept it. Didn't know what else to do. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her clothes were torn, not from wear, but from battle. Strange marks tattooed her collarbones, symbols he couldn't place. You got a name? He asked. Yelka, I'm Soren. Trader, mostly. You need water? Food? Both. He handed over his canteen and the last protein bar from his pack. She devoured them like she'd never tasted salt or sugar before. You're not from around here, he said gently. She didn't answer. He helped her to the truck, wary but curious. Once they were back at his shack, little more than a container welded to old shipping frames, Yelka collapsed onto his cot. She slept for 12 hours. When she woke, she found him on the roof, scanning the skies. He didn't ask who she was, just passed her a tin mug of bitter coffee. They're coming, she said. Who? The ones who made me leave. Soren didn't press, just nodded. You can stay as long as you want. A sandstorm hit that night, wind howling, like voices in a foreign tongue. Yelka stood by the window, watching lightning dance across the dunes. They want to open the breach, she said suddenly. They need a node, a junction. The cube you found, it's one of them. One of what? Keys, interfaces, devices meant to stabilize dimensional tiers. Your world sits on one. Lucky us, or cursed. He took the cube from its box. It pulsed faintly again, reacting to her presence. You're part of this, he said. I was, she whispered. I refused. They hunt me now. Why'd you refuse? Because they would use your world to wage war. I saw the cost. Soren placed the cube between them. So what do we do? Run, hide, survive, until help comes. And if it doesn't? Yelka looked at him. Her eyes weren't human, not fully, but something in them had learned to hope. Then we fight, together. In the weeks that followed, they built defenses, scavenged more tech, mapped the land. Soren found himself looking at her too long. She noticed, but said nothing. One night, under a sky streaked with shooting stars, she touched his face. Thank you, she said, for not asking me to explain everything. You look like someone worth trusting. I'm not. Then I'm worse. She smiled, and for a moment, they were not fugitives or relic keepers, just a people in the dark, breathing the same air. Then came the noise, a low hum, then a roar. The sky split. Metal descended like knives from the stars, not ships, something stranger, ancient, covered in glowing script. Yelka grabbed the cube. They found us. Run. No. We hold them here. The desert is vast. They won't expect resistance. Soren loaded his rifle, kissed her once, quickly. Guess we make our stand. The sand screamed, and they ran into it together. Lini played music for ghosts. Or at least, that's what it felt like. The metro stations were mostly abandoned now, ever since the blackout wave. Fog poured into the city weeks ago and never left. Above ground, drones patrolled every street, searching for people who shouldn't be there. Lini stayed below. Her violin echoed through the tunnel, low and trembling, the kind of sound that made rats pause and lights flicker. She didn't play for credits anymore. She played to remember. She almost didn't notice the man slumped against the far bench. At first, she thought he was just another down and out refugee. Then she noticed the glint of metal beneath his sleeve, and how his breath misted differently in the cold. You alive? she asked, lowering her bow. His eyes snapped open, green, glowing faintly, not inhuman, but not quite natural either. I need shelter, he said. This ain't a hotel. He tried to stand, but winced. Hand pressed to his side. Leni sighed. Fine, but you bleed on my rug. I'm throwing you back to the drones. Her hideout was 3 platforms down. Once a maintenance hub, now her sanctuary. Solar cells on the roof kept a few lights on. An old water purifier rattled in the corner. She laid him on a cot and examined the wound. That's not a knife injury, she muttered. What the hell hit you? Pulse shrapnel, he replied. Detonated when I intercepted a signal spike. That English, more or less. He introduced himself as Yair, said he was looking for the signal. A strange pulse that was activating old infrastructure all over the city. Something buried deep below was waking. You think it's alien? Leni asked. I think it's dangerous. Leni poured hot tea into a cracked mug. You got that half right. In the days that followed, Yair recovered slowly. He asked questions about the power surges, the disappearances, the murals that seemed to change overnight. Leni didn't have answers, but she had instincts. I hear the fog sings, she told him once. When it's quiet, it hums, like it's alive. He didn't laugh, just nodded. It's the signal. It's not just calling something, it's learning. Adjusting. Adjusting to what? To us. They grew. Close in the way people do when hunted. Leni taught him to play violin, badly. He taught her to shoot, poorly. They shared warmth beneath emergency blankets and counted the flickering lights like stars. One night, as the fog thickened outside their tunnel, Yair pulled a shard of metal from his coat. It pulsed like a heartbeat. We found this at the crash site, he said, years ago. It's part of a gate-key junction. I didn't know what it was until the others started activating. Your city is one of the last. Once it opens, they can bring the fleet. Leni stared. Fleet. As an invasion, as an annihilation. She stood, paced. So shut it down. Unplug the thing. Toss it in the river. It doesn't work that way. It's bound to the city's bones now. The only way to disable it is to overload it from inside. Meaning, I have to go in. You won't survive. He smiled, tired and small. Maybe not. But if I don't try, no one survives. Leni grabbed his hand, held it tight. You said we were a team. We are. But I was trained for this. You weren't. I trained myself to live in a graveyard. Don't tell me what I can't do. Together, they followed the signal deeper into the city's veins. Through maintenance shafts, flooded tunnels, old war bunkers. Fog thickened until it choked them. Yair used the shard to part it, revealing the old gate spire of humming crystal and bone. Rooted in the foundations, it's alive, Leni whispered. And, listening, Yair placed the shard into the spire. It pulsed once, twice. If it goes wrong, he said. You run, you survive, you keep playing. Leni kissed him, brief, furious. No one gets to die alone. The gate began to glow. Reality stretched. The city trembled. Together, they stepped forward. By the time they reached the edge of the crater, the sky was already cracking. Clouds tore in symmetrical spirals, light bending wrong as the atmosphere bent under pressure from something not meant to exist here. The breach had begun. Morgan crouched behind a rusted-out cargo drone, eyes locked on the smoldering chasm ahead. Beside her, Corin rested in his partial form, still humanoid, still limping, but stronger than before. This is it, he said, the final junction. If they open the last node, the Armada will arrive. Morgan glanced at the distant silhouettes racing down the crater's rim. Not soldiers, not human, just things that wore the shape. They're almost here. Then, we must be faster. She handed him the signal dampener, the same frequency scrambler that had once blocked his collar, now repurposed to destabilize the gateway's internal logic. Plant this at the breach site. Hold it for 90 seconds. I'll cover you. Corin hesitated. You have no armor, no shield. I've got good instincts and a decent throwing arm. He ran. Morgan followed, rifle in hand, heart hammering. The crater floor shimmered with unstable energy. A web of light pulsing from the buried gate. Silhouettes emerged from the fog, figures that looked like people, but moved as smoothly. Morgan fired. Each shot lit the crater with muzzle flash. The things hissed, fell, dissolved. But more came. Almost there, Corin called. The device in his hand sparked to life. Tendrils of static curled from its edges. He plunged it into the central fissure. Everything screamed. Soren bled across the sands. The battle at the desert gate had cost him most of his scavenged tech. The skyships were falling back, but Yelka lay unconscious beside him, her pulse faint dot above them. The clouds swirled, energy pulsed. Soren reached into his coat and pulled out the final piece, the shard she'd told him to guard with. His life. He pressed it to her chest. "Wake up," he whispered. "We're not done." A tremor rippled through the ground, then her eyes snapped open. Blue fire surged around them. She rose, weak but standing, hands glowing with old light. The others, they're at the final node. Then we make sure it holds. Yelka raised her arms. Light shot skyward. Now Eva limped through the ash-coated trees, Silas by her side. The underground ruins had collapsed after the firefight, but they'd escaped with the coordinates. They reached the relay node just as it began to overheat. Alien tech pulsed like a heartbeat, sensing with something unseen. "Can we shut it down from here?" Silas asked. "We can slow it. Maybe enough." She sank her hands into the root-like control cluster. Silver veins glowed beneath her skin. "This was never supposed to be my burden," she whispered. "You're not alone," Silas said, gripping her shoulder. "You never were." The sky above cracked open, but the light began to stall. The breach flickered. Deep beneath the city, Leni and Yer reached the heart of the gate. The crystal spire twisted toward infinity, its song deafening now. Yar's breathing was ragged. "Ready?" Leni asked. "I've always been ready to die. Just never had someone to make me hesitate." She pressed her forehead to his. "Then don't die, fight. With me, together." They surged into the light. Yar's shard met the core of the spire. The entire tunnel shuddered. Wave after wave of interference struck the fabric of the gate. Fog retreated. The sound quieted. The city breathed at the crater's edge. Morgan pulled Corin to safety as the light burst from the breach. A final scream tore from the fissure, a sound older than language, and then the gate imploded. The sky went dark and quiet. Corin clutched her hand. "You did it. We did it. All of us." They looked out across the crater. Distant flashes of resistance still flared in the sky. The war was not over, but the invasion was halted. Corin leaned closer, forehead to hers. "I was taught your kind would never risk themselves for others, that you were fragile, primitive. You were taught wrong." "I'm glad I was." He kissed her. "Not out of instinct, not out of ritual. Out of hope. And across the world, those who had fought Soren and Yelka, Neva and Silas, Leni and Yer felt the shift. This was not humanity's triumph. This was a shared defiance, a choice. To fight, to love. To stay. And to finally be seen.